This podcast is brought to you by Free Buddhist Audio, the Dharma for your life. Our work is funded entirely by donations from our generous listeners. If you would like to help us keep this free, make a contribution at freebuddhistaudio.com/donate. Thank you, and happy listening.
Welcome once again here to Dharma Day, celebrating the miraculous, momentous significance and possibility that one human being can share their experience with another human being, and that person can transform their life on the basis of it. So obviously some of you have been to many, many Dharma Days over the years, and some of you have never been to one before. So it's quite a wide range of experience in the audience. What we're celebrating, just to make it really clear, for Buddha, 2,500 years ago, a human being had a big question. His question was, why do we die? What can we do about it? Why does everybody I love experience suffering? Do we just have to suck it up? Do we just have to deal with it? Or can we do something about it? And that was his big question. And he went on a quest which lasted many, many years. According to traditional Buddhism, it would say it's a culmination of hundreds, thousands of lifetimes of asking this question. Why do we die? What can we do about it? Do you just have to deal with it? Is there something more creative to be done? And the Buddhist tradition would say that he found an answer to that question. He found freedom. He transformed his mind. He still died, but the nature and the suffering associated with his death was totally different. And that is something that is amazing, miraculous. I like that word today, miraculous. I never normally use that word. I don't know why I'm into it today. And in a sense, when I was thinking about this morning, probably for some of you thinking, what are you going on about? Why are you making such a big deal of this? So I was thinking it's a bit like, you know, when you watch a true life movie, so you watch the life of Martin Luther King or Aretha Franklin or, you know, any of these people, and there's the point when it all looks really bad, isn't there? You know, it's not going well for these people. But you know it's going to come out all right because there's a movie about this person's life, so it's got to have been okay. You know that feeling? You're like, oh, it's going to be okay because they're making a movie about this person's life. So we're in the same situation, aren't we? So 2,500 years later, Buddhism's been going for 2,500 years. Therefore, the fact that the Buddha communicated it to somebody is self-evident and sort of who cares, so what? And what I'd like to just encourage you to do is to feel for a moment into the fact, well, that wasn't a given. Yeah, it wasn't a given. It's perfectly possible that the Buddha did not find freedom. It's perfectly possible the Buddha did not find a way of sharing that experience with somebody else. On the balance of probability, that was more likely. That was more likely. So here we are in the presence of something amazing, something miraculous. And what is that? That a human being cannot just... Because it's relatively easy to say to somebody, how do you get to the shops? You walk down the road, you turn right, you turn left, you're there. So, repeatable instructions are relatively easy, aren't they? We all know this. It's like, when you want to do something, you go on YouTube, and YouTube tells you what to do, and you just, do it like that. Like, I do that when I'm doing DIY. I go on YouTube, and it tells me what to do. And, of course, it doesn't quite turn out the same way. Is it? They're like, just do it like this, and then do that, and then it'll be fine. I'm like... So it's a bit more complicated than that. But, you know, you've got a general sense. It's like, oh, yeah, just do this, just do that, and then it will be all okay. So what's amazing about the Buddha is that he went on an incredibly... The Buddha's journey was an internal journey. It wasn't walk down the street, turn right, turn left. It was an exploration of what is the nature of the human experience. How do we untangle the complexity, the difficulty in our experience and find freedom within that? And so what's amazing is that he didn't tell people to do what he did. He found a way to help them access what he'd done without doing the same thing again. So this is a relief because for those of you who aren't familiar with the Buddha's life, he spent 9 years banging his head against really extreme patterns of behaviours in the name of freedom, which I won't go into today, but he had a very, very, very difficult and challenging time. So just to say, do that again, I'm like, well, I can't do that again. It's too much. It's too hard. Do not have your endurance. I do not have your capacity. But he didn't do that. He found a way of replicating his experience which others can access. That is the miracle we're celebrating today. Back to the language of miracles. So what is it that he communicated? So he communicated the four noble truths. So just to kind of bring those into the room, and that's really what we're focusing on this afternoon. So you're going to have a few go-rounds of hearing about them. So the first noble truth is the fact that life sucks. Yeah, life sucks. And people put it different ways. Life is suffering, life is dukkha, life is unsatisfactory. But let's be blunt, life sucks. Bad things happen to us and people we love. Good things happen to people who don't deserve it, who behave badly, and yet they seem to have all the good times. What is going on there? Life is profoundly unfair. We're presented with, we are born into this world and we experience pain after pain after pain. We experience loss, we experience separation. Those we love die. Those who we wish we didn't have to have very much to do with move in next door to us. Yeah? This is what life is like. So, and you could, of course, it is worth saying that this is one of the most misunderstood subjects in Buddhism, because I certainly remember reading about it as a young man thinking, God, how depressing. Why are they telling me that? Why? It's just like it's a downer, isn't it? So I'm talking about a miracle, and now I'm just telling you all that you're going to die and bad things are going to happen to you. That doesn't feel very miraculous, does it? So what's the Buddha getting at here? So I would, in a version of a sutta which I wasn't familiar with which Balajit shared with me, there's a series of different words, there's a series of different things we do with each of these teachings. So in the case of the first noble truth, the case of suffering, our job is to understand. Yeah, so we need to understand. What do we need to understand? We need to I would suggest, certainly it's been true for me, the primary understanding is that I am not a uniquely flawed human being who's getting this life wrong and everybody else is doing okay. So I don't know all about you. We're quite different ages, we're different points in our lives. Maybe you never had this experience, but I certainly remember feeling like I was profoundly screwing up life and looking around and thinking, everybody else seems okay. Why is it just me who doesn't understand how to be happy and well in this world? Is it just me who experiences suffering and pain? Because everybody else seems okay. That was, obviously, it's not quite true to say that everybody else seems okay, but it's easy to feel like that, isn't it? It's easy to feel it's just me getting it wrong. So what we're invited to do is to understand that this experience of discomfort, of pain, of loss is universal. It comes with being alive. And if maybe this is a thing you've reflected on many times before, maybe this is familiar to you. If it is, then I encourage you to reflect on this more deeply. If it's not, then maybe this will be liberative for you, just to think, this happens to everyone. I'm not uniquely flawed, because often what we haven't, I don't know about you, so I have an experience of suffering, and then my natural response is to withdraw. I close down. I separate away from the world. I isolate myself. That's certainly my experience of suffering in my life. And what the Buddha's saying is, he's saying you don't need to do that. You're not getting it uniquely wrong. In fact, the fact that all of us experience heartache, experience loss, that is what most deeply and profoundly connects us. Yeah, so rather than it being a mistake, a problem, it's an invitation to forgiveness, to forgive ourselves. Forgive yourselves for the mistakes you've made, the suffering you've experienced. It isn't, I was going to say it's not your fault. Of course, sometimes, I'll say a bit more about that in a second, but it is of our nature to experience pain. It is of our nature to experience loss. That is what it is to be alive. And I draw great comfort and solace from that. So the second noble truth, I said it's not your fault, and then I paused. So those of you who are familiar with this teaching, you'll be aware that the second noble truth is that the core, so suffering is inherent with being alive. Unfortunately, we make it worse. We crave, we want it to be other than it is. Yeah, so this is the human lot, isn't it? What it is to be a human being is to have an experience and want it to be different from how it is. Too hot, too cold, the weather's a really good example, isn't it? So this morning, looking at my weather app, I was like, all week I've been looking at it saying, is it going to be nice? Can we have lunch in the garden? Are we going to put all the stuff out in the garden? I'm like, feeling okay, it's going to be okay. Get up this morning, look at the weather app, I'm like, it's not going to be okay. Like it's not, and it's the worst kind, because it's not raining. Like rain would be straightforward. It's just like, it's like 17 degrees at 6 o'clock. I'm like, 17 degrees, that feels a bit kind of cold. It's slightly like, it's not like luxurious, happy, kind of lounging around, celebrating, enjoying the garden in convivial conversation. It's like sitting there slightly cold thinking, I think I'm going to go home now. That's not what I wanted. I didn't want that. I wanted you to be able to enjoy our beautiful garden. So that causes me suffering to some extent. So craving is the bit that we add to the experience of being alive. We don't want it to be how it is. We want it to be different. So the word that Mahavagga Sutta uses here, that's for Mahavagga, it's one of the historical teachings of the Buddha, which this story comes from. The word they use here is abandon. So the Buddha says we need to understand the fact that we experience suffering and we need to abandon craving. Yeah? So I don't know about you, so when I hear the word abandon, that's quite strong language, isn't it? So maybe some of you sitting here are feeling a bit like, who are you to be telling me to abandon craving? You might be thinking, I don't really clear what it is that you're telling me to abandon in the first place, but you definitely know that you don't like being told to abandon things, yeah? So if that's your experience, you're not alone. When I read that, I thought, that's quite strong. I don't know if I feel comfortable with being told to abandon things. So when I was thinking about it, I was thinking, well, what's a different word? I really love it that there's these words because they present us with a sense of, there's something to do. It's not just like the Four Noble Truths. They can feel a bit sort of like abstract, just over there. So it's, no, so there's something to be understood. I need to more deeply understand that I and everybody else experiences suffering, that is the nature of life. It's not my fault. And then I need to abandon the things that I do that make that worse. Yeah? So again, it's like you're not uniquely flawed, but we all do things which make our lives worse. Let's just be honest about that for a second. We all do things which make our lives worse. So I'd like to invite you to consider a different word, or a phrase. I'd like to invite you to consider facing with courage the fact that you all do things which make your lives worse. Face with courage that fact. Yeah, face with courage the fact that we all add to our own suffering. We all make our lives worse than they need to be. If you're feeling provoked, Balajit in the second half is going to do the cheerful, uplifting bit, so you can look forward to that. So this is from the Dhammapada. As a fletcher straightens the arrow, so the person of understanding makes straight the trembling, unsteady mind, which is difficult to guard and difficult to restrain. As a fish threshes from side to side, taken from out of the sea and cast on dry land, so the mind throbs and vibrates with the strain as it abandons the domain of grasping, of clinging. The mind is frivolous and difficult to control, alighting on whatever it pleases. It is good to tame the mind. A tamed mind brings happiness. As a fish As a fish threshes, I'm from Essex, that's quite hard to say actually. As a fish threshes from side to side when taken from the sea and cast on dry land, so the mind throbs and vibrates with strain as it abandons the domain of suffering. So we're still in strong language land, aren't we? So some of you will be familiar, I often say that I think all lasting change comes from a position, from a place of positivity, a place of confidence, a place of abundance. Yeah, so that's my observation in my own life. I think, I sort of really mean that actually. I think all lasting change comes from a position of possibility, of hope, of abundance. It's never really worked for me to say, stop it, don't do that. Or if I am going to do that, it has to be strongly grounded upon a sense of possibility, a sense of hope, a sense of well-being. Yeah. So this is quite a strong teaching, isn't it? So I really encourage you all to kind of contact that sense of possibility, the sense that the Buddha is not telling us off here. What he's doing is inviting us into a state of greater well-being. So I've got written here, start with 2%. So John Bird, the founder of the Big Issue Foundation, who's a interesting man who I know not enough about really. So he really turned his life around and he's helped a lot of other people turn their lives around. And somewhere, probably the best part of 20 years ago now, he published a very short book for people living on the street facing real difficulties. And I can't remember what it's called, but the book's called like How to Sort Your Life Out in 8 Simple Lessons. Yeah, it's less than 80 pages long, written very, very simply. Bearing in mind, John Bird's a man who really lived this. And his first thing is start with 2%. Yeah. So I really love that because it's so easy to think, we've got such a propensity to all or nothing thinking, haven't we? We've got such a propensity to feeling like it's all got to be done now, that I need to stop being deluded, I need to be free, I need to stop craving and grasping after these things that cause us suffering. Start with 2%. So I'll give you an example. So some of you will know this, some of you won't. So I have been playing games my entire life. I remember as a 6 or 7-year-old child finding Dungeons and Dragons. It's like one of these role-playing games, one of the oldest in the world. I remember finding a little black box under my parents' bed. It's about this big. And it's got a black box with a white cover on red. It's got written on it, Dungeons and Dragons. And from that moment, I was hooked. Yeah, so I was 7, 8 years old, quasi-literate at the point where I found that box. I really couldn't read very well. But I knew I wanted this, whatever it was. There's something mystical about it, isn't it? Yeah, like under your parents' bed, it's the sort of like, it's the secret realm, it's the hidden realm. That's how it was for me anyway. And I loved it. So that's the best part of 40 years ago, not quite, like 36, 37 years ago. So I've spent my whole life having this incredibly strong movement towards games, the imaginative world, escape is a strong source of happiness and well-being for me. It's going to say it's the primary source. It's probably not, but it's one of the most strong drives in my character. This move towards believing that happiness and well-being is to be found in this world is just, it's sort of indescribably deep, actually. It's just like, however far down I look, it's like, oh no, there's more and more. It's just like, that's such an important part of my life. So what's the Buddha telling me to do about this? Yeah. So it's really important to be clear. The Buddha is not saying do not have pleasure, do not have hobbies, love football, cricket, Mozart, cameras, David Bowie, whoever, whatever it is that brings joy and light into your life. That is super important. And he's saying, look at what's going on there for you in relation to that. So one of my favourite quotes is, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And in that regard, I can clearly recognise that I do have insane behaviours in reference to what I think these games will do for me, what I think for fact that I still, after practising the Dharma for 25 years, I still believe they will fundamentally make me happy on a particular level, at least some of the time. It's just bonkers. It doesn't work. It does not work. So what does start with 2% mean? I'll give you an example. So my wife, Singer Matty's been away this week, and one of the consequences of her going away is that I definitely spend more time in game world than I would do when she's at home. So I've spent all week getting progressively tireder as I have a busy and demanding week, and yet I stay up late, seeking escape, seeking happiness, seeking well-being. Just wanting some pleasure. And so this is funny, isn't it? So it culminated on Friday, where I had quite a difficult day, and I came away from that day feeling really upset. And I'm like, God, why am I feeling so upset? And it's like, I'm feeling really upset because I've had a difficult day, and because I had 5 hours sleep last night, and 5 hours sleep the night before. 5 hours isn't a good amount of sleep to have in this life, just putting it out there. More is definitely good. It's definitely better for me. So on Saturday, I was kind of sitting there thinking, Dharmashalan, this is out of control. You're giving a talk about craving. Something needs to happen. And I thought, right, that's it. No games for a month. That'll be really good. It's the 1st of July, no games for a month. That'll be really good. And I went to bed, and I was lying in bed, and I thought, a month's quite a long time. Maybe how about a week? Like a week, that would be good, right? A week would be good. So I was like, okay, a week. And then I was lying there, and what happened next? So then I was lying there, and it was like 10 o'clock, so I was like, you've been going to bed far too late, you need to go to bed early. I'm like, I really can't get to sleep. And then I was thinking about one of my games, so I was thinking, but if it's going to finish on Tuesday and I got complicated. But then what I realised was, just today, just don't do it today. That would be good, yeah? So that's my, that's start with 2%, yeah? So it's incredibly easy to say, and we all do it, don't we? We've got these behaviour patterns which cause us pain, cause us suffering, and we're like, no more! I shall never watch Netflix. I shall never not go to the gym. I shall, from this day forth. It doesn't work, does it? Start with 2%. Today, I shall do something different. So here's the embarrassing thing. So those of you who know me well don't know me very well, you can ask me how that's gone on Tuesday and Thursday. We'll see. I'm genuinely curious. I'm genuinely curious. So, just to say a bit more. So in a bit, Balajit's going to say quite a lot more about the second two of the pair of Noble Truths. So we understand that life is inherently painful. We face with courage the fact that our kind of wanting it to be different actually makes the painful bits more painful. We face with courage, with the implication that maybe you want to do something about that. We realise that freedom is possible, that we can totally transform our minds, our lives, and our hearts, which is what the Buddha represents. And we develop, we practice, we do the Eightfold Path. So this mosaic here, that's what that represents. It's the Eightfold Path, the 8 things we can do to transform our lives. So Dr. Ambedkar, one of the most famous unknown Buddhists of the 20th century, decisive influence on Indian culture, liberated, really positively transformed hundreds of millions of people's lives through his politics, through his social work, and through his practice of Buddhism. So one of the things he said is, talking to his Dalit community, one of the most downtrodden communities in the history of humanity, he said to them, so I'm telling you, you can do this. I'm telling you, you can be free. And he said, what you've got to watch out for is you walk about and you're a bit like somebody who's the doctor's given a prescription to, and it's like, I've got the cure. Dr. Ambedkar's like, you need to do it. It's not enough to know it, you need to do it, you need to act. We need to develop the Noble Eightfold Path, which Balajit will be saying much more about. So I feel really grateful to Balajit for choosing this theme for today, because I'm often kind of like not that bothered about Dharma Day, and frankly the Four Noble Truths isn't a list which has classically particularly interested me. So it's just been a really good opportunity to reflect on, well, just this kind of core teaching of the Buddha, that suffering is inevitable, we make it worse. It doesn't have to be like that, and we can do something about it. What an incredibly hopeful and positive message. So, and just to dwell on that a bit more, so in the story, at the point at which, so the Buddha's kind of sitting talking to this old small group of friends who he's kind of gone and found, trying to find someone he can communicate with. Actually, we're not going to do it like that. So 25 years ago, this Buddhist Centre was opened on this day. So on Dharma Day, 25 years ago, this Buddhist Centre was opened. And what a thing to celebrate the hard work of many people. Can I just... So who was here on that day? Bodhiniya? Yeah, Bodhiniya, Uddhagga, Viplakirti, Nagadevi. So don't keep your hands up. So during the tea break... and Dharmada was here, and Shantavira was here, do go and ask them what it was like 25 years ago. Yeah, because it is, thank you. And you're still here 25 years later. What a thing to celebrate. Yeah. But I particularly want to mention the four people who set up the Birmingham Buddhist Centre. So Virachitta, Sunanda Satyapala and Vimala Vajra. That's right. No? Yeah? Okay. Okay, anyway, thank you, sorry. Those people and others who really committed their lives, who gave a good chunk of their time to creating the conditions for this place to be possible. Yeah. So they set things up before that. They set things up down the road on Salisbury Road for quite some years. But it's just really worth reflecting on. People have given their time and energy to making this place possible. You know, blood, sweat and tears have gone into continuing this possibility of transformation which we're all benefiting from now. So I just really want to invite you to bear them in mind. In a sense, with a sense of celebration, a sense of appreciation. So when the Buddha managed to communicate something of his experience, this freedom, these Four Noble Truths, what happened is, again, another miracle happens. So what happens is that the universe resounds with the significance of what's happened. So it's like, this is obviously in 2,500 years ago, so they would strongly have a conception of gods, of kind of spirit beings who control the elements, who are part of a structure of reality. So they all let up a great chorus of celebration, of delighting in the fact that it is possible for human beings to be free. It is possible for beings to be free. It is possible for beings to understand that we experience suffering, to face with courage the fact that we do make that worse with our own behaviour, to realise that we can be free. We can be free, and to develop and practice to tread the path that leads to that freedom.
We hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. Please help us keep this free. Make a contribution at freebuddhistaudio.com/donate. And thank you